It's not just the buffoonery of Trump, it's the entire American leadership Tehran, FNA, after withdrawing from the nuclear deal that made Iran substantially limit its civilian nuclear program, and to agree to a safeguards agreement giving the IAEA a level of access far beyond what any other country is expected to allow. U.S. officials are now saying Iran must keep this up. It's a galling position, because the U.S. isn't fulfilling any international commitments in the Middle East either, and this includes dishonoring international law in Syria. They call it the war on ISIS and al-Qaeda. And by their own admission, they say they are still in league with what they call the Syrian rebels, albeit knowing that they include al-Qaeda-allied Salafists and Wahhabi Takfiri terrorists who still commit crimes against humanity in the name of freedom and democracy. The warmongering hordes willfully ignore the murderous behavior of the rebels and obscure their identity and brutality. If some have now begun to spread their criticism to include chemical attacks against civilians, it's only for show. It's easier on the conscience that way. This includes the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights as well as the rituals of deliberately unenforceable resolutions entertained by the UN General Assembly. The West condemns criminal jihadism and admits that the rebels have abducted and killed an unknown number of civilians who requested the armed groups to leave their cities and towns, to spare the lives of civilians. Furthermore, indiscriminate attacks have been conducted on heavily civilian areas of government-held cities and towns, with air support from the United States. But they do nothing to stop it. It's worthwhile to enumerate that the U.S. government also never bothers to admit that this is not a civil war, let alone debate the plight of the Syrian people who have endured each and every foreign-backed statutory war crime codified by the International Criminal Court. This grotesque behavior of the U.S. ensured that the imposed war on Syria, mass murder by chlorine gas, massacres of innocents, car bombings, firing of mortar rounds into crowded neighborhoods, as well as deliberate targeting of hospitals, schools and markets by the U.S.-led coalition of regime changers on the pretext of saving Syria will continue apace. The European Union says it will not pay towards rebuilding post-war Syria if Moscow and Damascus leave no space in the future for what they call opposition to President Bashar al-Assad's government. According to a draft joint statement from the EU's 28 leaders, the EU will provide support for Syria's reconstruction only once a credible political transition is firmly underway. The EU has also signaled it would press for more sanctions on Damascus, unless President Assad critics have a role in the future of Syria. This is what counts these days as Western diplomacy and concern for international law in the humanitarian catastrophe that is Syria. The Western humanitarians are not prepared to offer any glimmer of hope to the long-suffering people of Syria even after the war is over. This is what we call the real complete meltdown of humanity. This is also what they have all become in Washington, the utter depravity to which they have all sunk. In the prevailing environment, however, international media should serve the public much better by focusing on what's going on behind the scenes of the world's most popular reality show, a very systematic two-tiered operation of Trump and Netanyahu in the effort to try to make sure they capture the headlines, that they are top of the news, one crazy thing after another just to capture people's attention. And the assumption is, well, they're gonna forget later anyway. The petty shortcomings of these two warmongers preyed upon by media serve as a distraction while their savage forces get on with their sinister schemes and war crimes in occupied Palestine, Syria and Yemen. While everything is focusing on Trump's exit from the Iran nuclear deal, the Republicans, who have initiated war more than anyone else in the world, are busy implementing programs that they have been talking quietly about for years. Some savage programs, which have very simple principles. 1. Be sure to offer to the military-industrial complex gifts beyond the dreams of avarice, weapons sales to Saudi Arabia and other Mideast vassals worth over $100 billion, and kick everyone else in Europe, China and Russia in the face. And it's going on step by step right now behind the nuclear exit bluster and Iran bashing campaign. It's so systematic that it can't be unplanned. The world community doubts that Trump planned it. Whoever is working on it is doing a pretty effective job, and the Democrats are cooperating in a very striking way. The Democrats should be keeping the Republicans in check, but by playing along with the Trump media circus they deserve part of the blame. Allowing Trump to derail the nuclear deal and escalate the Syria war is a big mistake. The consequences: everything is being systematically destroyed while everyone's looking the other way.